Hello and welcome to AV 101. In this six-part series, rAVe and NSCA have partnered to give you the basics on the Pro AV industry. I'm Tom LeBlanc, Executive Director at NSCA, and today I'll be joined by AV experts who will discuss the fundamentals of audio. But first, a special thank you to our sponsor, TD Senix Visual Solve, who makes this series possible. Okay, so let's meet our panelists. Alicia Henley is a business development professional at Audinate. She's a journalist and a content creator. Welcome, Alicia.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, Bradford Ben is a principal at Advicist Group, which is hard to pronounce. Welcome, Bradford.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. And you've done much better with pronouncing the name than most people do.
All right, and Chuck Espinoza is, I think he's the lead instructor at Avixa. Welcome, Chuck.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tom. Happy to be here.
All right, Chuck. All right, so I want to start by talking a little bit about how each of you got into audio and how you work with it in your jobs, because there are a lot of different ways to work with audio. Alicia, can we start with you? Talk about your route into working with audio and what you do now.
Yeah, of course, ladies first.
Yes.
But yeah, I started in house of worship space with my dad. He was a sound guy. He went on to be a pastor, and he taught me how to work the boards at a pretty young age. And then I realized, oh, I'm the only person in the city that's got access to like this really cool gear. So I started DJing like the high school parties, right? I could set it up and kind of be the life of the party and have some fun with it. And once I graduated high school, we moved out of the area completely across country down to Houston, Texas. Nobody knew us. It wasn't like I could go to somebody's church and start volunteering or something like that. And a lot of people started asking me if I had gone to school. And I was like, there's school for audio? So at that time, there was either Art Institute or Full Sail. But I was lucky enough to find this gym that was right in my backyard, Media Tech Institute. So I went through that program. It's a year trade school where you get certified in audio engineering. And I knew I always wanted to be in the live space because that's kind of what House of Worship is. You have a lot of live things going on. It might as well be a concert. So I knew that I always wanted to do that, but school put you in a box, kind of a studio work. So I got into music for a little bit and I realized I was an audio engineer that didn't have any artist to record. And it was kind of boring at a point where you don't have anyone to record. So I utilized the internet. Craigslist was my friend. I got on Craigslist and started looking for audio engineering gigs. And I got into the hotel sector and then found myself basically in AV doing setup and doing all the load ins and load outs. Fun times. Long story short, I ended up joining a AV team that was in-house, where I was kind of like the A1 there, leading audio for concerts, football, theater, the whole thing. And from there, I've just continued to grow. I saw that all of my audio was connected to a network. So I eventually moved on from being an end user and joined a company where AV and IT was harmony, right? We built networks for AV to live on, and we made sure there was enough bandwidth and things like that. And once I felt confident and started learning the language of both IT and AV, I found myself at Audinate now as the business development rep, and it's kind of full circle, seeing that I was a little bit of an early adopter back in like 2016, 15, where we didn't even know if Dante was going to hang around, right? It was kind of like this experiment. And being able to utilize that technology when I was an end user, and now it's all come full circle. It's been a huge adventure and a lot of fun seeing that, Audinate is leading the conversation when it comes to audio over IP solutions.
I mean, I really like that story, Alicia. And, there's a lot of unique aspects to it, but it also has a lot in common with a lot of other stories that I hear in this industry about how people got into their careers, because often it starts with people doing something that they enjoy.
Yep.
Like in your case, like working with the church and DJing and music and all that stuff. And then it turns into an opportunity, maybe not even in a planned way, but it turns into a career. And it's really cool. Bradford, what's your story?
Well, I was born very young, and basically in my I don't want to say my elementary school years, but it's the best phrase. My grandfather worked for the Army Corps of Engineers doing telemetry and voice and data communication for really cool stuff. And then in high school, I kept doing theater stuff. I performed well enough that I was actually recruited for technical theater into college, which I never knew was a thing. Joined the college radio station, became a technical director for the theater, did sound design for all that stuff, etc. I learned that there's actually an install job. I'd never thought about not, you know, doing live, and all of a sudden theater and movies and all that stuff showed up. But I took a couple of years and toured rock and roll and slept on buses or not slept on buses, depending how you want to count it. Then I came to Florida and started working in the themed entertainment industry in 1992, 93, and have been in that industry for a long time. But along the way, I was an IT director for the company I was in way back when, before TCP/IP was big, and it was Novell IPX, which like three of us in this entire industry might know. So I happened to be at the right place at the right time for networked audio and already had a networking background.
Wow.
Left the integration firm, went to Harman. At that point, it was Crown. Literally, the day they were bought was the day I was hired. And just stayed working in that industry. Started in the amplifier side, and eventually through hard work and, I guess, I don't want to say good luck, but good results is probably the better phrase, moved up through, and then came to Florida to work for a major theme park, which I'm now allowed to say is Universal Studios Florida and their new park. And then after COVID kind of impacted things, I started Advisist and figured I should have some fun sharing what I know about audio and making everyone's life better.
Very good. That's a great story, Bradford. And then Chuck, how did you get into audio? And I mean, as a trainer, I know how you work in audio, but tell us a little bit of your story.
So it's kind of a mix between Alicia and Bradford. I started off young doing gigs and, DJing and stuff like that. And I went to a school that was really heavily musically involved. So I started running sound for some of the, high school bands and things, and researched on how to do sound. I actually joined the union, musicians union, stagehands union. And at like 15, I was rolling cables, and the monitor engineer said, "Hey, you want to learn how to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." A couple of years later, I joined the Marine Corps. It was 1990, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and I'm getting ready to go, do my civic duty. And while I was in boot camp, they said, "Hey, you play a musical instrument?" I said, "Yeah." So I auditioned for the band and made it. So I joined the band, a trombone player playing guitar in the rock band, and the monitors were awful. And found out that they don't have a training program for sound engineers. They just take like a French horn player and plop them behind the console. And so I said, no disrespect, Sergeant. I can fix that. And they said, "Yep, do it." So I got on there and fixed it. I was a sound guy. So I continued to be the sound system engineer for the Marine Band for a while, and started training other engineers because they didn't have a training program. So I made one. Trained more engineers, sent them out to the fleet. Finally got out of the Marine Corps and thought, well, this is fun. I could do this for a living. Went on tours with bands, just like Bradford did. Slept on the bus, didn't sleep on the bus type thing. And finally, my ex-wife at the time, or my ex-wife now, she's my wife at the time, said, "You know what? You need a real job. Like, you go out at night and party with these guys and do this stuff, but you need a 401k. You need health insurance and all the things." So I said, okay. I got a job as a tech, and I didn't know anything about RS-232 or video, so I learned. And I wanted to learn this stuff, so where do you learn how to be a tech? Well, you have to do it from the tech above you. And if your lead tech's not that good, you learn bad habits. So figured this stuff out, said, well, where's the book that you read to be a tech? Because in the Marine Corps, there was a book for everything. If you didn't know the job, you read a book and you learned the job. So they said, there's not really a book. Found Infocom at the time, got my CTS, and asked them about a book for techs. And they said, just so happens we're getting ready to start a committee to write a book for techs. And it was the installation handbook. I don't know if anybody remembers that. So I worked on that. And that was my first kind of experience with other professionals, Mario Maltese, Jim Maltese, Bill Natras, Travis Lisk, Wesley Warner. And I got to know a lot of these guys, and they kind of helped me through some of the mentoring that I, was going to do later. Worked every job in the AV industry from then on: tech lead, tech project manager, engineer. Finally end up as an executive, and I didn't like it. I liked being a tech. And Mel Jordan, at the time, the trainer for Infocom, said, just throwing this out there. He and I were friends. We're having lunch. He says, would you like to be an instructor? I'm like, yeah, I really will. So I quit my exec job in like a week, and I was an instructor. And so now I teach sound, principles of sound. I'm actually, right before we got on, I was just teaching the principles of balanced systems, the whole, signal, positive, minus noise, negative signal, plus noise, and how that works. And I mean, if you, what it really boils down to, a lot of things, is people don't understand the fundamentals of the math. So I try and make it as relatable to their job and as easy to understand, like these hard concepts, these engineering concepts, as possible, because that's how I learned. I didn't go to college. I didn't, I don't have a lick of college. I was all trained in the field. So I kind of break it down for them like I break it down. Or like
that's great.
Yeah.
I love, like, all three of you have very different routes into your careers in audio. And I like, Chuck, when you mentioned, kind of that priority to get a real job. There's a nice marriage between like having a real job and the other stuff you guys are talking about, which is, kind of being into this stuff. So there is that opportunity to have a real job, a real career based on this stuff that, a lot of people are just very enthusiastic about. So it's really cool. I want to talk about audio a little bit with you guys, kind of the way it's perceived in society, right? So if you're a bit older, like I am, you can remember days, and plus through movies and stuff, like older movies. I'm not that old, but like you're aware that there was a time when audio was just like the coolest thing. Like people took super pride in like having big speakers, and just everything had to be blown up. Everybody took a lot of pride in audio. And then there was like a transition, maybe like 20 years ago or something like that, where people started to think, well, okay, well, it's not really about like the powerful audio. It's about, the seamlessness and the convenience, and just making sure everything connects and is easy to use, the intuitiveness. And I wonder, how do we, like as we sit here in 2022, can we make a case as a group here? Can we make a case for why audio is still super important? And Alicia, you're probably the youngest, and probably it's harder for you to know about or remember those days, but I'd like your take on it. Is audio still cool, and why?
Yes, I am younger. I'm younger than all of you guys. So great point. But
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for reiterating that point too.
No, it's not necessarily harder for me to I guess I wasn't like implanted in those days, right? Like recording studios, I didn't record on tape, right? At this time, everything was digital. So, but the good thing is that I was led by older people. So I always knew the fundamentals of audio. And in my opinion, audio is always going to remain cool, right? Audio is everywhere. You walk into a movie theater, you don't have any sound, the movie's not as cool. You go to the Van Gogh exhibit and you sit in the middle of that museum and you're looking at all of those, all of those historic, paintings and things like that. It's not as cool without the soundtrack, right? And back in the day, I get it, all the audio heads, right? It was about collecting gear, having the biggest speakers, having the most powerful things. And I think it's still that way. It's just gotten smaller, right? Audio heads were collecting. Now the latest headphones, we're still going for the microphones, right? It might not be a U87 like it was back in the day, right? It might be the Shure USB microphone. It's the same exact thing. It's just in a digital path. So I think audio is always going to be cool, and that's why people are still getting into our industry. And that's part of what I do within my journalism and telling my story. Like, hey, this is cool because you use it everywhere, right? AV is something that's not marketed as a traditional way to get into this business because it's everywhere. There's a whole bunch of different verticals. So if we continue to tell our stories better and ultimately look at audio as still being cool, then I think there was no change there. The gear changed, but the love of audio and the cool factor, I should say, is still the same in my opinion. Because if you go to the Super Bowl, there's no audio. It's not as cool, right? 50 Cent hanging upside down, singing Go Shorty, right, would not be as cool without audio. Like there's no way around it. Audio is the foundation of our industry, and it always will be.
Well said. All right, Bradford. Is audio cool and why?
Audio is cool, and I think it's overlooked. And I agree. Back in when I was born, audio was a different experience than it is now. Part of it was an investment in time and money. Of you got out this big piece of vinyl that had grooves cut in it with little pits and peaks. Then you put a transducer on it, and it spun around 33 times a minute, and you got audio out of it, and you had to clean the dust off, etc. And so that was kind of a ritual of audio, and that's what made things, I'm not going to say cool, but made it more of a, this is an act, this is an event, I'm listening to music. And I think it's changed a little bit, but I still think it's very important, and we're seeing it become more important, as Alicia alluded to, in experiences. I work in various industries over dozens more years than probably Alicia's been alive, as she wants to point out to me. And it's changed, but people kind of forget that if you go on It's a Small World at Disney and there's no music playing, have you really been on It's a Small World if you haven't heard that music for 3.5 minutes straight? Or the ultimate THX sound, or Are You Ready for This before an NBA game, or Hey Hey Goodbye at another sporting event. It's all these things that people don't realize. It's setting the place and the tone. And it's kind of, I'm not going to say commoditized because that makes it sound bad, but that's kind of what's happening. Alicia's talking about a USB microphone. I know there are people who record a podcast on a $9 USB headset and think it's good enough. And it probably is. But then there are people like us who go, well, I'm going to hook up this AKG 414 into a Universal Audio preamp and stream it at 96 kilohertz sample rate to my Mac, and then record each track and do some sweetening. And so there is still a difference, but the what's good enough and what's impressive changed. And I think part of that is that table stakes got better. You can now get a home theater system for under $200 and be perfectly happy. And everyone's so used to compressed music and lossy music that having lossless music is a huge thing. And I think that's where we can make it cool again. I gave my cousin a CD, and he had never had physical media before. My cousin's much younger than me. And he was like, are you sure this is the same song? I'm hearing things I haven't heard before. And I'm like, yeah, this is the way it is. And that's what MP3s and compression does and all that. So I think it can be brought back to cool by making it a unique experience again. The communal experience of going to a movie, the communal experience of a theme park or a concert, or just hanging out with Chuck at a trade show is a communal experience. But all of these things revolve around audio, and we see it and hear it a whole lot more than we think. The example I use for a lot of people is, you ever watch television and it just doesn't feel right or look right? And how often is that just the lip sync is a little bit off? And then people kind of go, oh, now I understand. Or I'm at an airport, did you hear the paging? No, well, let's make that better. So I think it's a bigger thing, but it's kind of become the background. And I don't use background music as a joke, but how many of us listen to music while working? It used to be that was a luxury. Now almost everyone does with headphones. So I think it's just kind of a change.
Okay, that's good stuff. All right, so Chuck, now you have a very interesting perspective because in your position, you train people who are getting into careers in audio. So these people obviously think there's a lot of cool factor when it comes to audio. I would like for you to, I want the folks in the audience to be able to picture types of jobs that they can get in audio. And when you think about like the people you're training, what what are some examples of career paths and venues and opportunities that they would have in audio?
Well, the nice thing about audio, and this is one of the core principles that I teach, is once you actually learn how to control, how to propagate, how to manipulate audio, you could do anything. When I teach how to balance an audio system, I do it with a small 4-channel mixer, with a microphone, with a powered loudspeaker. I teach them how to set the amplifier sensitivity for the room and not just turn the amp all the way up, right? How to do that with math, how to set the gain stage with math for the correct sensitivity of the microphone. Look up the microphone specs and put the math on it. Figure out how much SPL you're going to get. Now you could be an operator for a conference room or executive staff VTC coordinator. You could be a front of house engineer. You could be a monitor engineer. You could be somebody who designs audio systems to go into large enterprises that we're doing paging systems, or hey, we specifically design noise masking systems for doctors' offices or for top secret environments. Once you learn the principles of what audio really is and how to, everything there is to know about the sine wave, you could be a recording engineer and figure out, I have to record at a higher bit rate for more clarity, for more depth, for a better understanding of our lower and higher frequencies and how the bit rate affects that. And oh, by the way, this higher bit rate is going to give me a bigger file, so I need more storage. All of the things that audio does, once you learn the core of it, you can branch out all over the place. This is the whole reason that today's generation, older generations like Bradford and I say, our audio was great because we recorded it on tape. And they came in with Bobcats, really emphasize this thing called the loudness wars, how we compress. And now everybody's listening to compressed audio on an MP3 player. And they're like, it sounds great. I don't have to turn it up or turn it down. That was one of the beauties of the big speakers, because I could listen to something really quiet and then it would be huge and I get this emotional impact. So once you learn all about that stuff and then you bring it back around full circle, you realize, hey, you know what? I need more hard drive space because I have to record higher bit rates, higher sampling rates. I've got to record those smalls and those bigs. And just learning the fundamentals of all this, once you do learn those fundamentals, you can go off you can have a career like Bradford's where you're doing, audio live on the road one day and you're working for a major theme park designing experiences with audio and not just hearing stuff, but you're creating emotional impacts.
It's really cool. The emotional impact thing is very central to, I think, any career in audio. Alicia, are there career paths or career opportunities that you would like for folks in the audience to know about? Like when they think about, okay, well, I'm interested in audio, but I don't really understand, like Chuck was saying, like what would be my real job opportunity there? Are there things you want people to know that are out there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when I speak with my sound girls, this is what we talk about a lot, right? Because when you get into audio, you kind of think most of us get in audio because we love music, right? I thought I was going to be the next Puff Daddy. Nobody could tell me anything different, right? And then I got in school and I was like, oh, I'm going to be the touring engineer for Beyonce. And I quickly realized I hate load ins and load outs. That's not going to work, right? So, there's a lot of different ways, but definitely when I speak with, sound girls organizations and we're having these conversations, my lead in my story is always audio is everywhere, right? Don't just box yourself into music, right? Don't leave your love for music. We all love music, right? It makes us who we are. It triggers our emotions. It makes us happy. It makes us sad. So yes, still indulge in your love for music, but there are jobs that are available that can help fund your life. Like Chuck said, get a real job, right? Have insurance and things like that, to where you're not really like still in the mud trying to figure things out, or trying to get to day-to-day processes. So I'm always encouraging people, as much as I loved working the board, it's been a while since I touched a board. But instead of operating, I am now creating structure for the industry overall. Like, if you think about it from a holistic point of view, you can be an engineer for a manufacturer and really change how audio is delivered to the market. Or you can design systems in conference rooms, arenas. Instead of actually operating a board, you're creating the foundation for the whole experience. And that's what I love about AV. Yeah, we're behind the scenes, but we are really building the foundation of, of the platform for the experiences that are happening in all of these different verticals, whether it be a classroom, an arena, a stadium, or a conference center. So when you look at audio jobs, don't just look at necessarily being a tech, because there's other opportunities to orchestrate a lot of things behind the curtains that pushes audio forward, and really attack how we do things when it comes to moving audio forward into the future.
Okay. Now, Bradford, I want to talk more about that technology side that Alicia was bringing up. So I think that, if you're, sort of a young professional, looking at a career in audio, and, we've all kind of alluded to how the priorities and perceptions around audio have changed a lot over the years. So there has to, I don't want to use the word intimidating, but there has to be sort of a feeling of, oh, am I going to run into obstacles because I perceive audio differently than, maybe the other generations before me that I might also be working with. So the way we've listened to audio has changed so much. Can you help us understand how young professionals can marry the old school? So think about like volts and ohms and all that stuff with the new school, and thinking about like digital audio and networking and wireless. How do those two intersect today?
So, interesting question, and one I've been talking about a whole bunch with people. Typically, the first thing I say is laws of physics don't change. The medium of transport might, but ultimately, what you're trying to do is take vibrations that I'm putting out and put it into someone else's room remotely. And the garbage in, garbage out still applies. Impedance still applies, although it's now at the ends, not in the middle. And I think that's one of the gaps that people miss is it's good enough. I don't know how to make it better because I don't know those steps. As Chuck alluded to, how do you set the amplifier sensitivity? Well, just learning that front panel knob that you turn to the right to make louder is not a watt knob. It's a sensitivity. That right there is where you can start getting into, here's how a young professional can learn and make things better. To me, and this is where I'm going to sound old, audio is still audio. The transport doesn't matter. It's kind of, the example I use is, you're a craftsperson. Way back when you were making cabinets, you used a handsaw and a chisel and a plane, and you made a cabinet, and it was a good cabinet, lasted years, etc. Now there's electricity and newer features. You now use a circular saw, a sander, a router, etc., but you're still making a quality cabinet. It's just the tools that are changing, not so much how you use them. Yes, they can be thought of as more forgiving, and you can undo what you couldn't do on tape, but getting it right first is still the big thing. And especially in the live environment, you can't go whoops. And like you said, the old school of the theory still works. Point loud side towards people. Put sound where people are, not where people aren't. And yeah, we have all sorts of cool things like wave field synthesis and all of these things, and things that people think are new and impressive. That's been around since 1932 was the first patent. We're just catching up to it. So I think the fundamentals always stay the same. And I think people are getting into the, oh, I can just do it here. The fact that Alicia knows how to drive a desk is a great thing. the fact that a bunch of people just put it into Ableton Live or GarageBand and mix one at a time and use automation is a completely different skill. And you don't learn the, how do I make this sound good on the fly? What sounds good? What sounds bad in real time? And I think that's where the young professionals can join up. To me, the ultimate thing of old school and new school that can be joined, experiment. I know that sounds weird, but how many of us have, done I'm going to plug in the speaker and it comes out way too loud and you jump back? You'll learn never to do that again. But now people miss that part. But yeah, physics still works.
Or blow out some amps. My dad
yelled
at me. My dad yelled at me a couple of times for that. Some people learn the hard way too, but I definitely agree with you, Bradford.
And I also think one of the great things, and I know NSCA is doing this, I know I've been doing it, Avix is doing it, I know Alicia's involved with soundgirls.org, one of my favorite orgs. Chuck does it full time. Mentor people. Share with the people who are interested. People kind of laugh at me when I go, yeah, if you want to do what I do, I will teach you everything so I can go do something else. And just go and ask someone. I'm pretty sure if I came up to either you, Tom, or Chuck or Alicia and went, hey, can you teach me about this? And start sharing the joy. I think that's the big thing. But physics is still physics. And turning the knob to the right and putting a smile on someone's face is still the goal.
Well said. Well said. Mm-hmm. All right. So Chuck, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's new to the AV industry and they want to learn, more about audio. I want to talk about what resources you would suggest. Now, do you know of any places where you can get training for things like audio?
Yeah. So I will number one, tried and true, always 100% the hands down best audio training you can get. And I'm going to say it. They're not paying me to say it. I believe this. SynodCon. Pat Brown is the master trainer. He knows everything there possibly is. Anybody that knows anything about audio will tell you SynodCon. They have some of the best audio training on the planet, and I think even on Mars. And the great thing about the world we live in today is you can boot them up right online. Everybody has access to SynodCon. You can get online and they have pre-recorded classes. You can get online and they have live distance education. The next thing I always tell people is get on YouTube. There are a lot of people out there who have YouTube videos about how to do audio stuff. I've got tons of YouTube videos on audio. I have one that's balancing audio systems. If you just go to YouTube, type balancing audio systems, Chuck Espinoza, it's an hour and 20 minutes. And I take you 100% from soup to nuts on how to select the right microphone, make sure the preamp is correct per the math. And we go through all the math. How to make sure your impedance on your cables is correct, how to balance your console to get it to, I'm a 0 dBu guy. I'm a unity gain. And Bradford, I saw him shaking his head. He's unity, but Tom cares optimization. Both work. They're for different things, different techniques. I go through them. How to balance all that to your downstream DSP, to your amplifier, how to set your amplifier for the correct speaker load for your room, everything, and you can apply it to anything. There's so much knowledge out there, and all you have to do is just, hey, I want to learn about this, and you Google it, and it comes up, and you click on the video, and you watch, and then there's suggested videos that you watch, and then more, and you watch, and then what Bradford said is you experiment. What Alicia said, experiment, blow up an amp. It's okay. They make more. Bradford will advise you on which ones to blow up that are cheap. And you do this thing, you experiment. And even today, I'm starting to experiment with people on things like, hey, we're going to do recording online, but the musicians all want to rehearse together. How can I get my latency down? And this is the type of thing we're experimenting today with audio, the different transports. I can get it in the microphone. I can get it in the DSP. How do I get it cleaner across the network? Can I assign it or look for something that's assigned a higher diff serve or better QoS, right? These are the things we have to experiment with today. So you're getting into it. You're just getting into it. Learn the physics of audio. Learn the math, because 0 through 1 has been 0 through 1 for a long time. It doesn't change. Is when you understand the physics of things, you can understand how they're better used. So learn the physics, learn the basic principles, expound on those basic principles. Google, YouTube, and listen to Pat Brown and do whatever he says.
That was great. But Alicia, did he miss anything?
I mean, he's the master of training, right? So he threw out a lot of good stuff there. And definitely, I agree with both of these guys. You have to know your basics, right? Your fundamentals. There's no way around it. It's just like basketball, right? You can't get on the court if you don't know a bounce pass or chest pass, or you can't shoot a free throw, right? You got to start with your basics in every single path that you take, right? And that's kind of something that I've always done. We've talked about younger and older a lot on this conversation, but every time I joined a team, I automatically linked up with the oldest person on the team. And I did that for a reason. That's because I need to learn the foundation. I need to learn the history. I need to embody that and then take what they've already created and put rims on it, right? Like the wheel doesn't change. We just all put different spinners or whatever, slabs, whatever you call them where you're from. That's just what we do. And that's how we keep evolving, but the foundation doesn't change. And I think one thing that is important, once you know your foundations, you build on that, right? And if you're getting into any kind of commercial audio, then I think you need to learn about Dante, right? And I'm not just saying that because I work at the company. I'm saying that because it's the present and it's the future, right? Everything is going to be connected to the Internet of Things, including audio. And if you're coming into this industry, you need to learn about how to route things across a network. And Dante is leading the forefront on that. There's free trainings that you can check out. So learn your foundation, build on your foundation, because in live sound, Dante is doing a lot of the work. In commercial sound, Dante is doing a lot of the work, especially when you get into larger installations. So learn your foundation, build on top of that with including some kind of networking, because everything is going to be connected to a network.
And I gotta say, one thing that Alicia said, learn Dante, and a lot of people who really don't know what Dante is, it's the protocol. So it's not like buy this manufacturer's box and
Right.
use that protocol. This thing works with everything. So it's like she's saying, learn how the internet goes. Like it's this protocol that's all over. It's not just one box. It's not just one thing. It's learning how the ones and zeros go through. And it is a great protocol. It's in many different boxes. That's the cool thing.
Yeah.
I also want to echo both what Alicia and Chuck have said. SnodCon has taught me an amazing amount of stuff. I've been lucky enough to work with Pat, assisting him with digital audio classes. But the biggest thing for me has been talking with everyone and listening and interacting. And if you join the SnodCon listserv, which is less expensive than taking the class, I've asked questions to things and not realized I'm talking to the person who invented that protocol, such as Kevin Gross with CobraNet or Ray Rayburn. And getting that level of answers is a huge thing. The other thing that I want to make sure people are aware of is understanding the environments you're working in. If you don't like music, which is fine, some people don't. I don't understand it, but some people don't, whatever makes them happy. You might be great in doing audio for court reporting or for the news or those types of things. And understanding all the different flavors of audio and audio applications. I can tell you an airport information system is going to sound 100% different than a stadium, which is going to sound way different than vocal only spoken word house of worship. And learning those idiosyncrasies, odds are you can find something that you excel at. There's enough room in audio for anyone and everyone that does something. Having me mix country and Western music, probably not the best idea. Having me mix so-called Chuck, have me mixing difficult listening music, as I call it. Oh, I'm all over that. But getting to know what you're like and what you don't like and what you're good at. And the other great thing I tell people, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know who to call.
That's right. 100%.
I mean, I'm not the expert here at all. You three are the experts. One thing that I would throw into the mix, though, is, volunteer. Like if you're into if you're a person who is involved in a church, think about volunteering, doing some of the AV and audio at the church, or if you're into live productions and plays and that sort of thing, see if you can get involved in that. If you're, involved in DJing or interested in DJing, there are going to be lots of opportunities where people are putting on something fun that you can get involved in. And I think there are opportunities to learn and keep learning and keep making mistakes and keep finding out what you like by doing that sort of thing. Okay. I want to thank everybody, for joining us today. I want to thank especially our panel, for taking the time to educate our audience on the fundamentals of audio. Bradford, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm typically on the interwebs. You can find me on the Twitter at Bradford Ben with 2 N's. You can find me at advisus.com, my latest and sole source of doing things to keep me out of trouble nowadays. My new consulting company I started last year. Always happy to answer questions, always happy to share knowledge. So feel free to reach out, or on LinkedIn. If you can't find me, just put me into a search engine of your choice.
All right. And Alicia, how about you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, almost on every platform at The Smooth Factor, or my website, thesmoothfactor.com. And, active on the socials too, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, at The Smooth Factor.
All right. And Chuck, how about connecting with you?
I am, like Alicia and Bradford, all over the internet. If you type in Chuck Espinoza, I come up first in Google and all the happy goodness. You can find me on Twitter at Mad Sound Guy. You can find me on Facebook most of the time at Mad Sound Guy 2. Mad Sound Guy 1 got nuked by Facebook. So I'm at Mad Sound Guy 2. I am on LinkedIn. If you type in Chuck Espinoza CTS, I come right up. I take questions from all over the world for our Avixa students and members. So I answer questions at 2:00 in the morning. I love to chat more than anything about all things AV related. And I have no life. So please contact me and let's have a conversation.
Isn't that everyone in audio?
Yeah, really. If I'm
Hell
mixing a
no.
show, I'm chatting. So,
Don't contact me at 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Well, leave it for those old guys, I guess.
And my email would be cespinoza@avixa.org. So you could just Google my name. It comes up at avixa.org. And I love to answer questions. Love to chat with people.
Awesome. Great stuff. So for me, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter at LeBlanc Tom. Be sure to check out nsca.org and ravepubs.com for all the latest Pro AV industry news and research. And thank you again to our sponsor, TD SYNNEX Visual Solve, who makes this series possible. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. Please be sure to check out our next session, Displays 101, which will be hosted by Megan on May 2nd. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our panelists, and have a great day.
AV 101 is sponsored by TD SYNNEX. The Visual Solve team unites the industry's top AV, IT, and CE technologies to build the cross-functional solutions their partners need. With comprehensive capabilities covering everything from pre-sales design to integration, installation, and post-sales support, they're your strategic partner. Their industry-certified experts are ready to provide the guidance and personalized training you need to diversify your business. Engage with them today at visualsolve@synnex.com. TD SYNNEX Visual Solve will be at Infocom in booth W1403, and registration is open now. You can use code SYN222 to get your free exhibit hall pass.